this draft class are relatively safe, secure, determined. But then when we get to pick 3 is where it gets a little bit different, and that is Ace Bailey, who had that season in Rutgers playing alongside Dylan Harper, the Sixers with pick number 3. A lot of people are projecting him there, but I do seem to think, Logan, at the moment there is maybe a bit of a pushback from that. So some of the stuff you watch from Ace Bailey, you look at the size and you go, oh, that's interesting. Oh, okay, he can do that. And then you watch some of the play and you go, yeah, that's disgusting. What am I seeing here? So when we talk overrated, again, his consensus number 3 at this point, how far off of that are you?
Yeah, so I don't think I like the word overrated for Bailey, but I think misunderstood is probably the better word. There are kind of 3 comps that I think get thrown around quite often when it comes to certain archetypes of prospects, and those are Nikola Jokic, Draymond Green, and Kevin Durant. Very rarely do we see guys come close to hitting that kind of ceiling. Bailey kind of falls into the Kevin Durant third of those prospects. Just big, kind of wingy type players who make shots, take difficult shots, and add a little bit with a handle. As far as Bailey goes, where I think he falls short in that regard, I don't think he is a good enough handler or a passer to really fill in the areas around scoring. I think he does have a very clear-cut role and very clear-cut set of strengths. One of those being the shooting, and then other than that, there's the athleticism and the stuff he's capable of doing on the defensive end. But as far as being a surefire top 3 prospect, I'm just not very sold on some of the things that guys are hyping him up to be.
So he's quite young. He's not 19 yet. He played high usage player. Scored like 19 points per 36 numbers up on the screen. Shot 35% from 3. The easy argument to make against some of the efficiency stuff is like, look who he played with. And at the end of the season, when Dylan Harper was out, like things got way worse. He was taking more contested shots, which is never going to be the case, that he's in a situation where he is that much better than his teammates in the NBA, and he's not going to be forced into some of those ridiculous decision-making situations that he was put in, and often he chose the incorrect decision. I think the problem here is, and these guys are quite different players, but like we've seen top 3 players in the past, like Marvin Bagley, who had incredibly low assist numbers, Jahlil Okafor, not a good passer, and this lack of this awareness of players around you led to those guys, among other things, but really struggling in the NBA. Now, this is a player who's not a center. He's more of a 4/3 but has those problems. And it's very rare that you see a guy playing on the wing who just never passes or doesn't pass well or doesn't have any sort of level of that creation. Do you think that the low creation and low passing sort of stuff from Bailey is more to do with the situation he was in and no trust in teammates, or is it another guy I put is John Kuminga, like a complete blindness as to what's going on around him?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a product in some regards to the situation he played in. Rutgers didn't really have a ton of great bigs, didn't have a lot of knockdown shooters on the wing. Led to him kind of creating in these close kind of quarter spaces more often than he probably would have on a better shooting, better built team. And obviously didn't have the lob threats or the offensive rebounding threats to really kind of clean up some of his mistakes or give him more easier options. But some of that stuff is a little self-inflicted. I mean, you look at Dylan Harper and what he was able to do in that offense. He's one of the best shot creators around the rim you're going to find in this class. Bailey just did not have the skills to get downhill, to find his teammates at the rate that some other guys in this class can. I don't think that is damning to him being good in the league, but I just don't think it's going to be his role to be that go-to scorer.
That's going to be the problem there, is it's like always these guys, they play in college, a little bit different for Bailey actually because his teammate was better than him, but a lot of these guys are the best player on their team all the way through, and they get to the NBA and they've got to adjust their role, and sometimes that can take time. Like a name that comes to mind, obviously not nowhere near the same player, but a guy like Aaron Nesmith, who was a completely different player what he did in college, and now he's turned into this tenacious, ball-hawking, high-foul defensive wing where he's like this elite just shooting player coming out of college, and like he still can shoot shoot, but like we didn't see some of this stuff that we saw from him in the NBA versus in college, and that adaptability is always key to these guys. But Bailey's coming from a much higher level of being this highly touted prospect that maybe does need to change some of those things in his game to be able to have that success at the NBA level. I think I go back and forward on him. Like at the moment, I do have him at 3. I could easily see me not having him at 3, but I think the thing that I keep coming back to on this slogan is there just aren't that many guys who are 6'7", 6'8", however tall Ace Bailey is, who can come out and who can potentially score like this, who's got the size, who's got the frame, who's got the ability to do this. Like, these guys don't exist. Are there plenty of guys at 6'2" who can shoot and can create? Sure, a lot of those guys. But how many guys at this height have that upside where even if they struggle, even if they can't defend or they can't pass, they're just going to keep getting jobs and they're going to keep having roles and they're going to keep being persistent with it. Go, whoa, well, he's this size and he fills this hole that every team seems to have. And that just keeps bringing me back to him. So, again, if you think that you said about misunderstood as a player, you're not quite as high on him, how far does that idea like sort of nag at you and you go, well, yeah, but that size is just, they say you can't teach size and you can't. Like, does that like push you go, well, if it's a tiebreaker, I will go to a player because of that archetype of the size?
Yeah, I mean, when I've tried to do kind of mock drafts, Bailey's kind of like one of those guys where it's like I might have him 10 to 14 in my big board, which I feel like is a reasonable range for kind of the role I'm projecting him as, which is kind of, I hate the term 3 and D, but a guy who can make those shots, do a little off a closeout, and play some really good defense on the help side. I think that's kind of the range I'd have somebody who projects to be really good in that role in. But he's definitely somebody I could see getting taken higher than that, and reasonably so, for all the reasons you mentioned. There's very, very clear upside there. I just think he's got a long ways to go to reach it from a handling, passing, more ancillary standpoint.
Yeah, there's a lot of other things that he needs to be able to work on again, and it can all happen. But we've also seen these sort of players who have this high pedigree who you go, well, what about the size? What about the upside? What about this creation potential? And it doesn't work. And some it does, but for some it doesn't. And I think, for the next 20 years, we're still always going to be having this debate. Yeah, but let's try it because if it works, it's great. And if it doesn't, we try it again the next year. But you're always going to lean towards that because it is so hard to replicate that level of talent and that level of size. Otherwise, you end up like the Chicago Bulls with 6 point guards and no forwards. And that's part of why they paid Patrick Williams as much as they did, because again, they just go, oh, I guess he's sort of that size is important, but you got to be able to do something with that size, and that is always going to be in Ace Bailey's favor. We're going to come back and talk